So hopefully you finished listening to the podcast we had with Peg Keogh just here recently. So we've decided in this subject and a couple of the other ones we did around the college planning, a lot has changed and a lot's going on. And we thought we'd like to do this quick update for those of you that are listening in. Maybe you listen to this update by itself, but we really thought an update was needed here with Peg on her subject, because there's been a lot of changes out there with the FAFSA applications and the submissions. So Peg, let's just jump into this. Tell us a little bit, and for those that are maybe have done it before or about to be new to this, what kind of change with the FAFSA application this past year, and what are some of the challenges you're seeing in your clients in making their submissions?
Yeah, so just for people that are tuning in for the first time, so the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It's the financial aid form that almost every college in the country requires in order to be eligible for aid. So basically, the government, the Department of Ed, did a complete revamp of it, and most of the changes went live for the 24-25 school year. So this coming fall, basically. But the rollout it's charitable to say there's been some issues. It's been pretty crazy. And so parents that have class of 2024 kids, you've really been the guinea pig. And I'm not the Department of Ed, but I'll apologize for them. It's been rough. It's been rough. So basically what started out is usually the FAFSA goes live October 1. So fingers crossed for rising seniors that are going to graduate high school in 2025. It should go live this coming October 1 of 2024, but it didn't go live then for existing seniors. It became available toward the end of December. Okay, so it became available. What happened when it went live is there were a bunch of tech glitches. So people got in, I won't bore you with all the details, but just a lot of different tech glitches that were not the fault of the user, but they couldn't get through and submit their FAFSA. Some families did, but a lot of them could not. And so the government started working on all those fixes, but it took time. And then the government came out and said, hey, we're not going to be able to send the information from the FAFSA, which the internal acronym for that is ICERs, but that is basically your FAFSA information going to the colleges, which is what needs to happen so the colleges can get to work on creating a package for that student, a financial aid package. That got delayed. It was supposed to be later in January, and then they said, you know what, it's going to be in the first half of March. So that put everything on a delayed timeline. Then the government came out and said, oops, we've made a few calculation errors on the back end, because the student aid index, which is a new term with this rollout, that's what gets calculated on the FAFSA. That's what the colleges use to determine need-based aid eligibility. And they said, we didn't include inflation factor. And then that was the first error. And then they fixed that. Then there were other errors because information is pulled directly from people's tax returns into the students' FAFSA. And that wasn't all working and things weren't matching up. Just several different pretty major errors. So then the government said, we realize we have these errors. This is going to further delay things. And we're going to have to reprocess all of these FAFSAs. So you can imagine, Steve, families, right? It's one thing after another, and the anxiety's building up. So at this point in time, I think most of the errors have been addressed. They have reprocessed FAFSAs, sent new batches of information to the colleges. And by the way, the colleges were just kind of sitting, waiting. Like if the school only required the FAFSA, which is most schools, they have no idea about the family's eligibility. So they can't move forward in their normal process. So it is what it is. So most of them have been reprocessed, but because of the extensive delays and fixes along the way, there's a lot of students that don't have their financial aid packages yet, or if they have them, And now they need to appeal, which is
Right.
that step in the process where it's like, oh, well, I lost my job. Oh, the parents are separated, whatever it happens to be, legitimate reasons to reach out to the college and say, you need to recalculate. They're doing that now. And some colleges have moved back the deadline because there's a deadline, kind of a universal deadline of May 1st to get put in your deposit check to hold your seat as a student. So some schools have moved to May 15th. Some have moved to June 1, but some schools did not move their deadline. So then you have families like, I've got this deadline. I don't have any idea what kind of aid I'm going to get. How are they supposed to accept an offer? How are they?
Yeah.
So honestly, what some families have done is they've just put down the deposit because their main concern is to hold that seat and then they'll figure it out. We even talked about at College Aid Pro, which we've never done before, about the idea of putting down 2 deposits. Like it's
Wow.
not best practice by any means, and school counselors at high schools don't like it. It seems like you're gaming the system. But this year, there's a lot of schools have really tried to help families and push the deadlines back. But there's other schools that have said, go ahead and appeal, but you're not going to hear from us till July. So there's no deadline pushed that far. So these families are really stuck between a rock and a hard place. So some families have decided, hey, I'm going to put down 2 deposits, so that my child has options. And then maybe the school that we end up not going to will refund it, maybe not. So it's been super, super crazy.
A big challenge. Yeah. So Peg,
Yeah.
so hopefully, hoping that they got the system, the glitches worked out. And as families are going into this summer and starting to make these applications, now, is it that the FAFSA site goes live on October 1st and you're not able to submit prior? Is that how it works?
Yeah, the aid starts in July for the next year. So you can always, a family can always reach out to the school. It might still be on there for the 23-24 school year, but on October 1, you'll see the 24-25. So I want to tell any parents that have a rising senior next year, you probably want to get going. You can't go on and do anything. You got to hold tight. You can get your FSA ID. And the student needs it, and the parent, who is called the contributor, which is a new term in this process, whatever parent is going to be submitting it with, the student needs to get that too. So that is something you can do. But yeah, that's how it works. And as I said, fingers crossed. They had a congressional hearing several weeks ago with some heads of some of the big college access organizations out there and somebody from UNC Chapel Hill. And the congressman asked, like, what do you think's going to happen for class of 2025? And none of them were like unequivocally saying, oh yeah, we'll be good. It'll be fixed.
Right.
They were a little hesitant to say that. So again, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it's more streamlined and they've got all these kinks out, so we don't have another year where families are having to go through all of this, and schools, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we'll prep for that. And so, setting aside the glitches of the system, you said there's a new determinant, that index that they use for the kids. Was there anything you saw in this past year that kind of the numbers, how it changed a little, or maybe when we're thinking about some last minute planning or any other strategies for parents or kids? Any takeaways from this past year, this past session that you saw?
Yeah, the biggest changes, there's 3 big changes. That one, with divorced and separated parents and families, the parent that's considered the custodial parent for financial aid, that definition changed. So that's something that divorced and separated parents have to deal with. And it's not, if you have older kids, they're in the new definition. You're not grandfathered, and it's the parent that provide the most financial support on a year look back from when you're submitting the form, which is different than the old deal. Parents that are business owners, the value of your business used to be off the table. If it was a small business with less than 100 full-time employees, that's no longer the case. So valuing your business, some people have a hard time with that, and they tend to err on overvaluing. And that can really hurt you with financial aid. But to me, the biggest one is families that have crossover years. They have two kids in school at once. I have twins, so that was my reality all 4 years. The old formula would reduce the amount you could afford in the college's eyes by almost 50%, which makes sense. If you have a certain income and assets, just because you have two kids, that doesn't double, right? But the government got rid of that with these changes. But they made it clear, the Department of Ed, that for federal awarding, you can't take that into account. But colleges can absolutely take that into account when they're giving out their aid, which is by far the best source of free money, our endowment funds, basically. So there is a question on the new FAFSA that says how many kids are in school. So the colleges will see that number two or triplets, three, whatever people put in there, but they won't necessarily factor that in. They pretty much won't, but the family can reach out and ask them to. It's called exercise professional judgment. Go in there and take that into account. They can say no. We're following the strict federal methodology, but I think the colleges will really look at what their competing schools are doing because it makes a massive difference in affordability. If a school, if it was an 80,000 student aid index, that would have been maybe 43,000 with the old rules, and it stays at 80,000, that's really, really different as far as affordability for families. So they need to know that that's an appealable item.
Okay.
And if they do have competing schools, that's where you can have some leverage. And if one school will take it into account, but another won't, you could, in the right way, reach out and say, hey, thanks for this package, but XYZ school, took into account that I have two in school. Could you please do that? And you just see how the colleges respond, basically.
That's awesome, Peg. This is so valuable. Real quick, can you tell us a little bit about, any clients that come to me? I give the name. Tell us a little bit about College Aid Pro, how you guys help out, what's the easiest way for, any parents that might have additional questions to kind of reach out to you guys and engage you.
Sure. So we support families and counselors and everybody in this space, but our big focus is on families and educating in the high schools. So basically, if you need additional support, we have software, and we actually have a free version of our software. So you can go in, get your feet wet. You can see your student aid indexes. You can plug in 3 schools. We're all about what is the net cost for your family, because the sticker prices are irrelevant. All these schools are discounting. So what I encourage families to do, one, go to our website, collegeaidpro.com. Tons of resources on there. And when you go on there, it'll prompt you, suggest that you set up your free account. Go ahead and do that. Start getting your feet wet. Then I have personally been charged with building a team of experts. These are people from all over the country that we've found and vetted who really know what they're doing around this space. And then some parents are real DIYers. They go in there and they're off to the races. They're making their spreadsheets. They're good to go, but not most parents. It's overwhelming. It's hard to understand. And so they need some guidance along the way. So we step in, we have the software plus the support. So we can do hourly meetings. We have more comprehensive. Some people are like, I get it. I don't have time. Could you please own this for me and bring me into the process to submit what I need to submit? We understand the journey. And so we'll just meet parents wherever they are, but that's the best place. Go to our website, set up your free account, and then you'll be in our email list to get invited to all of our free webinars where we do really good education as well.
Awesome. Amazing. Thanks again, Peg. I found this really valuable, and I know our listeners will too.
You're very welcome. Good to see you, Steve.